key ingredient to good sex?
I do not know.
I'm not even gonna comment.
A big what,
Good
sir?
sexual relationship.
Of course you said that.
Definitely understanding expectations.
I think you have to work at it a bit to make sure it happens.
The key to a good sexual relationship in a marriage.
Scheduling it in your calendar.
Patience, understanding.
What we're talking about is making love, which means you need to be loving through the day. That's when it gets translated into a good sexual experience.
Shoot, be spontaneous.
Willingness to try new things.
Yes.
And listening.
We're not 25 anymore, so it's not the wham bam, thank you ma'am kind of thing.
I can teach you how to get it done, but you gotta listen. You gotta listen.
Man, it gets better with age.
Oh, is this about sex, this whole thing?
Big spoon or little spoon?
Don't understand.
Is that the same meaning of the question as we understand?
What do you love most about your body?
About my body? And we're talking about sex?
I like every part of you, but...
You're supposed to answer your first
Oh,
question.
my body?
Yeah, it's about your own body.
Oh yeah, your shape for sure. You know, you're busty.
It's
getting hot in here.
What's the hardest part about sex?
Children.
Answering that.
Anatomically?
Traditional or adventurous?
Oh my
I don't think we have like the time to be adventurous.
Somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your sex life right now?
I would say 8.
I'm about a 10. I'm pretty fulfilled. I'm a happy man.
Sometimes it is 1.
Wrong answer.
7,
You can't use 7.
7.
8, 7, 8.
Why can't you use 7? It's 1 to 10.
Because everybody uses 7 as a comfortable
No.
answer. Yeah.
8.5 is really good.
8.5. I'm a glowing 10, baby.
If your sex life had a soundtrack, what would it be?
Boys to Men.
I'll make love to you.
Barry White.
Oh, moments of love.
Alexa,
You-
put on the
you just
acoustic
for that.
sex playlist.
On the 20th of July 1969, as the commander of Apollo 11, Neil Armstrong climbed down the ladder of his lunar module and became the first man to step onto the moon. As he did so, he uttered the immortal line, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." But the story goes that as Armstrong was getting ready to leave and step back onto the ladder, he made the enigmatic remark, "Good luck, Mr. Gorski." NASA Mission Control assumed he was referencing a rival Soviet cosmonaut, but as hard as they looked, they couldn't find the name anywhere. Besieged by questions on his return, Armstrong refused to reveal the identity of Mr. Gorski. Decades passed, and still the question remained unresolved. But then, in 2005, a full 36 years later, Mr. Gorski passed away, and so Neil Armstrong finally felt he was free to tell the whole story. As a boy in the 1930s, he'd grown up in a small Midwest town. He told of how one day he was playing baseball with his friend and had hit the ball into his neighbour's garden. The neighbours were called Mr. and Mrs. Gorski. As he was picking up the ball outside their bedroom window, the young Neil Armstrong heard Mrs. Gorski yell at Mr. Gorski, "Sex? You want sex? You'll get sex when the kid next door walks on the moon." Thus, many years later, no doubt with a broad grin inside his space helmet, Neil Armstrong sent those special wishes to a man in Ohio from the surface of the moon. Good luck, Mr. Gorski. In this session, we're going to be looking at how we keep the spark alive in our sexual relationship, or how we can restore that spark if we feel we've lost it.
We've left this topic of sex until this stage of the course because every other part of our marriage affects our sexual relationship, just as our sexual relationship affects every other part of our marriage.
But that doesn't mean it's always easy. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of trying and trying to pull start a lawnmower or some other machine like that simply won't get going. I have a vivid memory as a young child on a hot summer's day of my father wheeling our old lawnmower out of the garage and trying to get it started. He kept pulling at the starter rope, but there was absolutely no sign of life in the mower. I then remember watching my father take the spark plug out and cleaning it with his handkerchief. Then he put it back, and with one pull, the mower burst into life. You need the spark if the mower's going to work. And it's the same with our sexual relationship. that spark ignites something very powerful. And the key to creating the spark is our emotional connection.
Emotional connection creates good sex, and good sex then produces a greater emotional connection. Sex is the ultimate body language through which we communicate our desire for our partner, our desire for closeness, comfort, love, protection, for wanting to have a child together, as well as it restoring our emotional well-being, which helps us to cope with the pressures of life. Even though we might struggle at various times and for various reasons, sex is a gift within our marriage to be enjoyed. We're going to look at 5 secrets to keep the spark alive in our sexual relationship. And the first secret is the importance of speaking to each other. Now, we want to say at the outset, we recognize that talking about our sex life, even with our partner, can be difficult because it's a deeply private area of our lives, and it requires us to be vulnerable with each other.
And we want to reassure any of you who are feeling nervous about this session that if you make a start, even a small one, it can be the beginning of a process of talking that will gradually get easier.
Unlike in most movies, sex in real life isn't always fantastic. For all of us, our sex life will go through good times and difficult times. The issues that stop the spark often have nothing to do with sex whatsoever.
Couples may struggle as a result of the different pressures that they face at different times in their lives. Anxiety and stress will always work against a good sexual relationship. It could be from a very stressful job, or it could be an illness or a bereavement. Pressure comes when a couple are struggling with infertility, and there are other pressures for couples with young children.
Nikki and I can certainly identify with the pressures that having young children can bring. I remember so well, in between our 3rd and 4th child being born, Nikki and I went away for 3 days on our own. I was so looking forward to this time away, and I was really hoping that it was going to rekindle a spark that had largely gone out of our sex life for me at that stage, mostly because of physical tiredness from looking after 3 young children. And I was hoping the spark would reignite. However, after the 2nd day, I remember feeling in total despair and wondering whether my body would ever be capable of responding in a sexually passionate way again. And I spent half of one night in tears, completely distraught about it. And it was only through talking and talking with Nikki that I felt he understood. And that made such a difference in getting through this difficult time together. And during this whole season with young children, we had to work hard to understand each other and to stay connected at an emotional level. And it felt like a long time, and I think it wasn't actually until our youngest child was about 18 months old that my body went back to responding anything like normally again.
If we failed to make time and space to talk about our feelings, it so easily leads to misunderstanding and feelings of isolation. You may find it hard to talk to each other because you're embarrassed, or your pride gets in the way as you feel you should just know instinctively what your partner enjoys. It's only through speaking about our sex life that we understand each other better, and that will increase our intimacy.
And both men and women need to keep asking each other questions, such as, where, how do you most enjoy making love? What can I do for you? What turns you on? What turns you off? And are there things that I can do that will help to create a sense of emotional closeness and connection between us?
Perhaps partly because of our upbringing, it was just a subject that you just didn't talk about.
Yeah.
You just don't talk about sex. You just do it.
I remember when I reached about 13 or 14, my mum just basically one day very quietly shoved this pink book at me, and it basically said 101 questions about sex. And that was it. And that was the sum total of any discussion that we had at home with regards to sex.
Coming from a culture, Middle Eastern culture, this is something that is a no-no thing.
It took some time, actually, that we're comfortable talking about expectations and frustrations. And when we decide and we work on it, and we work on our intimacy in all levels, in emotional level. We start with emotional level for sure. I think when we do that, our intimacy is closer than ever.
Started quite awkward, like during being in bed together, we would comment on something that we liked or we didn't like, and at the moment we felt really oh, he didn't
Maybe
like
I'm doing
it,
something wrong.
Yeah. I'll just turn and go to sleep. I think these awkward moments that we felt that are not proper paid off now after a few years, that if I didn't say out loud that I didn't like to be touched in that or that way, he would never learn that I didn't like to be touched that way. And it's just kind of being open about it.
It builds our relationship much stronger when we actually just naturally speak about sex.
When things aren't going so well in our sexual relationship, we can easily feel isolated and start to think, I must be the only one that is facing this kind of situation. We want to emphasise that the vast majority of problems couples face are common and solvable, and they don't mean the end of our sexual relationship, especially if we approach them together as a team.
What I find interesting is that so many of the couples I work with say, we had a problem and suddenly weeks turned into months and months turned into years, and we thought that it would just sort itself out, but it didn't, because we couldn't find a way to discuss the subject because it felt unnatural for us, or we weren't comfortable talking about sex. It's really important, if you've been struggling with a sexual problem, something like erectile dysfunction or dyspareunia, so sexual pain, or vaginismus, that you go and see your family doctor. And it's important that you do this together, that you both take ownership for the fact that you want to seek help together, you want to create a good sex life together as a couple, and you go and support the other person in doing this. For many of the couples I work with, coming to see me is the first time they've actually talked about it, and having a third person there who's used to dealing with sexual problems all the time makes it more comfortable for them. And a lot of the work that I do is getting couples not to talk to me, but actually to face each other and to talk about what's going on for them. And this is often the first time that they've sat down with their partner and really talked about why they're struggling and some of the reasons that they may be struggling. There's lots of help out there and lots of support that can make a real difference for couples. So it's important that we pull together as a team, that we're kind to one another, and that we seek help so that we can move through to a season where sex is really good.
During the time between my mother leaving and my dad dying, my dad had a spare room and rented it out, and I was sexually abused by the guy who rented out the room. And so that massively impacted then how I was in relationships. I wanted to be connected to someone, but I just physically and emotionally couldn't do it. And I ended up having a lot of counselling, and it was almost like as soon as I came out of the counselling, after 2 years of really intense, I met Phil. When we first started having a sexual relationship, I know that there were times that I would actually flash back to my abuse in the middle of it, and there were times, particularly at the beginning, when I'd just say, I just can't. And I really had to work very hard on saying to myself, Phil's my husband, he loves me, he's going to care for me, he's not going to hurt me. And it was almost like I had to train myself in that way. Phil had to be really gentle with the way he led me in terms of intimacy, particularly, and emotionally.
To not be gentle, not be aware of the issues affecting you would be just against the whole essence of, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because then, really, the pleasure is in knowing that you're deriving pleasure from us being together just as much as I am.
Yeah.
If it's all take, then that actually isn't what intimacy is about, is it? That's just gratification. It's not sort of two-way equal footing, is it?
If you've had any kind of negative sexual experience or abuse in your past and it's affecting your relationship, we'd encourage you to get some help.
For some people, a helpful catalyst for starting to talk about sex, including any problems you might be facing, is to get a book about building a good sex life. We recommend some on our website.
We'd like you to turn in your journal to the first conversation, Understanding Each Other. And take a few minutes to discuss together whether you grew up with positive or negative messages about sex. Talk about whether your upbringing has made it easy or difficult for you to talk about your sexual relationship now.
The next secret for building our sexual relationship is prioritizing. Sex isn't just the icing on the cake of a marriage, it's an important ingredient of the cake itself. American therapist Michelle Viner Davis, in her book The Sex-Starved Marriage, says, "You have to continually discover and rediscover new ways to keep your sexual energy alive. It doesn't just happen, you have to make it happen. You have to decide to make having a vibrant, exciting, emotionally satisfying sexual relationship a priority."
Familiarity in any area of life can so easily produce complacency, which in our sexual relationship makes us much more susceptible to the thought of an affair that seems to offer something new and different, or more vulnerable to the lure of pornography.
Scylla and I believe passionately that sex within marriage can continue with excitement, deepening passion and increasing freedom over a lifetime if we prioritize it.
The Times newspaper recently reported on some research about the best age for certain activities. And they found the best age for great sex is 66. So we're all on an exciting journey.
For us, I feel that it's certainly not diminished so far. So why should it diminish from here on in? And, in 20 years' time? I think it's crucial for throughout a marriage to keep connected. Whatever it may look like, might look completely different in 20 years' time.
I think we still like sex, but we can't do everything, but we still do what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually part of our Saturday night routines most of the time, but not always.
I don't know how to say it other than to say that it's possible to have romance in a marriage, to show affection and to show love in a physical way, even if you're in your 80s, and there's a need for it. There's a sort of a skin hunger, if I can use that term, that is really significant to human relationships, particularly intimate relationships.
I love Liz more than ever I have done before because she knows my whole story and we're still growing and our marriage is still on that journey, and I expect to find her as physically attractive then as I do now. Things might change in what we do, but I think we'll be connected physically.
Prioritizing means taking care of our sexual relationship. That means prioritizing the time and guarding the physical space for our lovemaking.
In practice, for most couples today, that will include leaving screens outside the bedroom. Trying to catch up with social media or doing our weekly online shop in bed can be the biggest romance killer. Some people say to us, but we use our phone as an alarm clock. Well, you can buy an alarm clock very cheaply, which may just be the best investment you make for your sex life.
Prioritizing also means being creative, not always making love in the same place with the same routine.
And we can vary the atmosphere by using candlelight or a dimmer switch, which creates a more sensual environment.
We can vary who takes the initiative. It's so easy to get stuck in a rut and always make love in the same way.
However, in being creative, the overarching attitude is to seek to give pleasure to our partner and not just take it for ourselves. We need to approach variety with sensitivity at a mutually agreeable pace.
Creativity in our sexual relationship requires us to make the effort to invest in this area of our life together. One of the things that has really worked well for Scylla and me over the years has been spending a night or two away in different surroundings. That's acted as a catalyst to reignite the spark if things have got a bit dull and routine.
The third secret, if we're to keep the spark alive, is anticipating. Our most potent and important sexual asset is our mind.
Having our own private language and private signals around sex sparks thoughts that create anticipation and build desire. And good sex doesn't start when we climb into bed at the end of the day. As one person said, the best sex starts at breakfast.
Arousing each other, and not just when we're preparing to make love, but at different moments through the day with an extended kiss, or by drawing our partner towards us in a close embrace, or sending a message during the day telling each other what we're looking forward to, keeps the sexual energy simmering between us.
Now, at certain times, love means holding back from making love, showing restraint for the sake of our partner. Restraint is an important part of a healthy pattern of lovemaking, and it leads to increased anticipation.
Another way to build anticipation is through romance. Romance has the potential to draw us into a world that belongs only to the two of us, a world in which our imagination is awakened and our senses are stimulated. It creates anticipation and sets the mood for good sex.
Romance is the bridge between the everyday world of practicality and this private place of our sexual relationship. It's the antidote to sex becoming mechanical and routine, and it builds intimacy.
And creating romance for one another needn't be complicated or expensive. It just involves doing something out of the ordinary that's appealing to our partner. And even if romance may not feel very natural to us, we can learn.
One of the things that I was most scared of is to lose the romance in our marriage. And I found a notebook back in Egypt where I had this written actually. And that was the scariest thing, because in all the relationships around us, you could see that there is no romance going on. And I think we were developing to be such a couple because romance was dying more or less, until we realized that it's really hard work. I've learned from Sami how to be more expressive in romance and how to find different ways.
Yeah. We have this, now we know how to express even emotions, even when we're older, and now we're embarrassing our kids when we go out there, Dad, what are you doing? And
You're
just
embarrassing
holding Sally's
I
hand.
try to run away always, but yes. I find that, I'd like to be more romantic, but you work on it.
No, you're okay just the way you are.
The antithesis of romance, and one of the biggest romance killers today that is affecting the way millions of people think about sex, is the easy accessibility of pornography.
Current research into the effects of porn on relationships shows it to be highly destructive and often terminal to a couple's sexual relationship. And in the long term, it conditions the way we think sexually about our partner.
One woman said her husband hadn't touched her for 4 years because he preferred to sit in the basement looking at porn.
Pornography creeps into a vacuum in life, something inside of us that's not being filled with life. You know, when you feel like you're walking around on the earth and everybody's in control of you, then you got to find control somewhere. You got to find power somewhere. Well, pornography will give that to you. You got power over this fantasy, and it's felt at some level, even unconsciously, by the partner. There is a moving away from the relationship at some level, and what you're doing is you're truly abandoning your spouse. And sometimes, you know, when that gets discovered, one of the biggest cries we hear from spouses is that you're having an affair. You know, that's how it feels. Like you prefer this fantasy world to me, and there's rejection and abandonment, and it drives a deep, deep, deep division. And then, you know, sometimes the person using pornography say, well, no, it has nothing to do with you. This is just something that I enjoy. That's just not true. Ultimately, in an integrated, intimate relationship, those things are felt and those things are experienced, and they actually drive wedges. Start to deal with those life issues and seek some outside help that gives some help for those underlying issues, some containment and some accountability and some structure to that, and also some guidance. And best thing is, if you could get in a group with other people that struggle, it normalizes it and it takes care of the shame. This thing never gets better until the shame is broken. And the only way to break shame is to come into another group with people that struggle with the same issue and find out you're not the only one. And I'd highly, highly implore you to do that.
I had a porn addiction that I was dealing with and knew that I had to confess that to Heather. And that was a long journey of forgiveness. I had started a job that demanded so much of my time that just is a breeding ground for unhealthy habits if you're not being really intentional with other people. So I was basically isolated because I was working so much. In that, you know, there's so many lies that go on internally of you're alone in this, this is not something that anyone else struggles with in this way. But then talking to people and being honest with other people was really the key to moving forward and to getting freedom.
And obviously I was still like in excruciating pain. My heart hurt, my trust had been violated, but like having the foresight to say like, my marriage is more important than me wanting to run away, than me wanting to turn in fear. Forgiveness and moving forward is the biggest priority for us. And so we're able to sort of work those things out individually and then come together to reconcile and then move forward. And so just really knowing like you're not alone was massive for us.
Yeah, community is huge. And the more you bring people into that, it isn't the more exposed you feel, it's actually the safer you feel and the more likely you are to come out the other side doing really well.
We want to encourage you to have an honest conversation with your partner in as non-judgmental a way as possible. If you recognize that pornography has become a serious addiction, we urge you to get expert help as soon as possible.
We also need to determine to guard our minds from inappropriate fantasizing. I remember one woman who spoke about becoming infatuated by her teenage daughter's boyfriend who was into doing weights at the gym. The relationship was all in her mind. It was a fantasy relationship, but she described how it almost destroyed her marriage.
Fantasizing about other people isn't an option if we're to build a good sexual relationship with our husband or wife. Using our mind positively to create anticipation and arousal means focusing our thoughts on our partner sexually and erotically in preparation for lovemaking. Thinking romantically about our husband or wife builds intimacy between us.
We want you to turn to the next conversation in your journal entitled Most Romantic Moments to get your mind going in a positive direction by focusing on romance. And tell each other what have been the most romantic times for you in your relationship, whether that's recently or when you first met. And listening really carefully to each other will be important for creating anticipation and being romantic in the future. fourth secret is responding. Recognizing what a powerful gift we have to give each other through our sexual relationship is a vital part of a marriage. In a survey, 1,000 married couples were asked questions about sexual responsiveness within their marriage. And the survey found that 75% of the husbands interviewed and 25% of the wives wanted more and better sex, by which they meant wanting their partner to be more responsive and to show their desire for them.
Many people don't realise that the way they respond sexually can have a huge emotional impact on their partner. One husband from that survey spoke for many men when he said, "When she says no, I feel that I'm rejected. No is not no to sex, as she might feel. It's no to me as I am. And I'm vulnerable as I ask or initiate."
And when we as wives understand this and show our desire for our husband, we're communicating our love for him in a very powerful way. Not just on a physical level, but at a deep emotional level too. Being responsive may mean taking the initiative to make love as a deliberate choice, even though we may be tired or we're feeling stressed by work or the circumstances don't match up to our highest expectations. For most women, and for a significant number of men, sex starts as a decision and then arousal follows.
We lead very busy lives with so many competing things for our time that if we wait for sex to be spontaneous, if we wait for the house to be tidy, my emails to be done, the children to be in bed sleeping perfectly, to feel relaxed, to feel good about my body, if we wait for that to happen, that time will never happen. It will never come. So one of the things that can be most important and helpful for couples is to understand that men and women function very differently when it comes to sexual desire and sexual arousal, and an understanding of that can be really helpful. So the man has the spontaneous desire and then he gets aroused. The woman gets aroused and then the desire kicks in. So if we're intentional about having sex and we've talked to our partner about planning it in, then it can be something that is in our mind, that it isn't suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where we're expected to be responsive. Our responsiveness can start in our minds, and that can be really helpful in terms of recognising that there's an expectation in our partner that this is when we're going to be intimate, but possibly more importantly that we recognise that there's an expectation in ourselves that this is what we've committed to, and therefore we need to take ownership about what will help us to enjoy that experience. How are we going to be fully engaged? If I've committed to be intentional with my partner about having sexual intimacy at a given time, what do I need to do in the run up to that to get myself in the right frame of mind? And if we're fully invested, we're much more likely to enjoy it because we will be connecting our head with our body, the arousal circuit will be connected, and then we're much more likely to enjoy what we're doing with our partner and what we're experiencing in our bodies.
Responding sexually can give our partner an amazing sense of confidence and well-being about life. However, responsiveness requires a climate of trust between us.
Trust is the foundation of a good sexual relationship, as sex requires the ability to feel free to give ourselves completely to our partner, to let go both physically and emotionally. This is challenging for many people and only happens where there is deep trust.
Any unresolved hurt between us will undermine trust and must be healed, not least for the sake of our sexual relationship. Michelle Viner Davis writes, "In my years as a marriage therapist, I can tell you with confidence that holding grudges is one of the most effective methods for killing desire that I've ever seen. Sometimes letting go of the past feels like an impossible feat, especially when the hurt is enormous.
But letting go of the past is possible through choosing to forgive. Cyril and I have seen couples do that again and again, even where there's been unfaithfulness or another major betrayal of trust.
Forgiveness is a vital factor in rebuilding trust, which then enables us to be sexually responsive to our partner again.
We want to go on to the fifth and final secret for keeping the spark alive: kindness. The first thing that we as men must learn about sex is that it's about giving. I had a speaker called Tom Nelson say this: physically, many men can be ready anytime, any place. But a man cannot be a good lover unless he's helped with the washing up, filled the car up with fuel, taken out the rubbish and been sensitive towards his wife's needs. Kindness means not only showing support in practical ways, but also taking time to tune into our wife's emotional needs.
Psychologists consistently tell us that men and women are wired differently when it comes to sexual arousal. We found a diagram which illustrates something of these differences. The top half is the man, and you can see the on-off switch is very clear.
And the bottom half is the woman, where it's slightly more complicated. And as one man on the marriage course said to us, what's more, the wiring gets changed about every 2 weeks. In our culture today, sex has become very individualistic, very self-oriented. So that the questions most often asked are, how can I satisfy my desires? How can I obtain maximum pleasure? But good sex has to be other-oriented. And as men, we have to learn and relearn to give emotionally first. And that takes time.
For a woman to give herself, she must feel safe, loved, and special. When kindness is lacking, it can lead people to using the other person for their own selfish ends, to cruelty, and even to physical violence. According to the UN, violence against women currently affects 1 in 3 women worldwide. And most terrible of all is that some of that takes place in the bedroom. The bedroom is where we make ourselves ultimately vulnerable, where we're most intimate with each other.
The bedroom should be the place where a woman knows that here she is safe and loved. Here she'll be treated kindly and tenderly. Here she'll be cherished by a man who knows her like no other. Being kind might mean we need to increase gentle touching, being affectionate, holding hands, putting an arm around our partner's shoulder, giving a hug or brushing each other as we pass. If a man only touches his wife when he wants sex, he sends a terrible signal. His wife will feel used rather than loved. And this can lead to no physical contact at all as his wife backs off, in case it's interpreted by her husband as an encouragement for sex.
Finally, for both men and women, being kind with our words has a huge impact on our lovemaking. There's a very strong link between building each other's self-esteem and building an intimate sexual relationship.
We need to make it a rule never to criticize our husband or wife's natural shape, nor to compare their body to the images of apparent perfection we see on magazine covers, in advertisements, and on many social media feeds, which in reality are impossible to achieve, even for the models themselves.
Instead, we mustn't stop telling our partner what we love about their body, because good sex requires self-confidence. Our kind words will build confidence in our partner.
At the same time, we need to take care of our own bodies for each other's sake. Most people, when they're engaged, go to great lengths to keep fit and healthy and look good, especially for their wedding. But then, sadly, once married, some people stop making an effort.
As far as our health allows, making the effort to stay fit and to be attractive to our partner within marriage is a way of being kind and will build our intimacy.
We go to the gym together every morning to try to be fit for one another. Hygiene's big. I throw on cologne. She throws on perfume that she knows I like.
We even made a pact of let's
keep it sexy.
We
That's what we say.
We say let's keep it sexy, and it's because we want to be attractive for each other. You know, I say if I can't gain weight, then you can't gain weight. You know, this is like a two-way street.
Definitely, if we're going out on a date, we kind of like amp it up. But I would say on a regular basis, that's just like we're children of what, like coordinated generation. so it's just a natural core value for us.
And for us, it's important, you know, health-wise.
Yeah.
And we want to stay attracted to each other.
And it's not about a vanity thing. It's I want to feel good, and I also want to look attractive for my husband.
I think one of our philosophies is, what do we do to get each other? Right. We need to also keep that high quality to keep each other. So that's big to us. And it's not big for everybody, but for us it definitely is.
The next conversation in your journal, Talking About Sex, is an opportunity to discuss your hopes and fears with each other. We suggest you write something in answer to the questions in A, B, and C that are relevant to you. You don't need to write an essay, but it'll help your conversation to write something.
And then show each other what you've written and start to talk about what you've each put. And for some of you, that'll be very difficult, but we want to encourage you to start where you feel able and it'll become easier. Without entirely giving it away, your continuing conversation for this week is all practical.
One husband told me on the way out of this session that they always did theirs on the way home. It wasn't until they were on the train that they saw in their journal what it involved.
We've spent this session looking at how we keep the spark alive. In this final part, we want to look at how we protect the flame of our sexual relationship. A flame with little emotional connection burns out quickly, while the same flame with a large amount of emotional connection will burn for a long time, and the connection feeds and protects this flame. It's our emotional connection with each other that ultimately maintains our sexual attraction to each other.
You'll have heard it said, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. There's another, much truer saying, the grass will be greener where you water it. Nurturing our emotional connection keeps the flame alive over the long haul.
Laura, take 2, Parker.
For a long time, I'd say I found a lot of value in how people saw me, what people thought of me, and how I was seen, and feeling known and understood and loved. As I wasn't getting that from Mark, I started going to other people to kind of get that affirmation, and that kind of drew me away from my marriage. I just wanted to split up, and I kind of moved away from Mark.
A whole kind of different things, almost like a perfect storm, different variables came into our lives that meant that we drifted further and further apart. At that point, it felt very much like it's because Laura's walked out on me. But I began to realise more and more just how much I'd contributed to the breakdown in our marriage. I tried really hard to listen and see how it made Laura feel, and try and put myself in her shoes. And then I could begin to take responsibility for that and say, well, that's something that I have the power to change, and I need to change for the sake of our marriage, and so that Laura feels good when I talk to her and not awful.
One of the main things is that I saw that he was going to stand by me, he had stood by me. He had fought for me when I was walking away, and that, for me, that was an incredible thing to see him and to know that love from him. You know, it wasn't easy, but it was the best decision I've ever made in my life, to walk towards Mark rather than away.
Protecting the flame of our sexual relationship is vital, as none of us is exempt from the danger of an affair. In order to protect the flame, we need to take practical steps to affair-proof our marriage. The first step is build each other up. The most common cause of affairs is a failure to meet each other's emotional needs for encouragement, affection, attention, and so on.
An actress who co-starred with a Hollywood superstar was asked if she found him sexy. She replied, "I tend not to look at men in that way since I got married. That antenna is no longer alive in me. I'm very loved by my husband, so I don't really feel the need to get that sort of attention from other men. My husband provides all that."
The second step to affair-proof our marriage is set boundaries. Infidelity starts and stops in the mind. We can't help ourselves being attracted to other people, but we can decide whether or not to entertain such thoughts.
Jesus' words offer the best protection. You've heard that it was said, "Do not commit adultery." But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. As one man put it, the difference between simply looking at a woman and looking at her lustfully is usually about 5 seconds.
But many affairs begin not with immediate sexual attraction, but through intimate conversation. Physical adultery is usually preceded by emotional adultery. A woman whose marriage was threatened by an email relationship with another married man wrote to us, "My emotional soulmate relationship transferred to the emails, and I couldn't wait to open my inbox. I was spending hours every day emailing this other person, and I ceased to communicate with my husband."
If we feel attracted, setting a boundary might mean avoiding being alone together with a work colleague of the opposite sex, refusing an invitation to lunch, or not reconnecting online with people we were previously attracted to. And if we feel emotional intimacy developing, breaking off email correspondence, or coming off social media.
The third step to affair-proof our marriage is talk to someone about strong feelings. I remember 2 friends of ours in the first year of their marriage being very surprised when they both found themselves strongly attracted to other people. To start with, they didn't tell each other, but the longer they kept it secret, the more powerful the infatuation became. And it was only when they admitted it to each other that the bubble burst. If we find ourselves in a situation like that and we can't tell our husband or wife, then it's important to tell someone else if the feelings are overpowering.
The fourth step to affair-proof our marriage is keep sex alive. Over the whole course of any marriage, at different times, husband and wife will have different levels of sexual desire, which can easily cause tension between them.
I expect her to respond the way I respond, and she's like, no, and I was like, oh, okay, what do I do now, And so we've worked through that. We still haven't perfected it, but we talk about it. And I think feelings for men involve sex. How do we talk about that? And it's been really good for us just to be more open and seeing her side, her seeing my side, and coming to an understanding.
Men don't need to connect in order to go there, and women do, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be mad at me all day and then say, let's go,
Yeah.
And I said, no.
So I've learned to take out the trash, to clean the house, to do
That's when I know something's
acts
coming.
of service.
Something's up.
Because that's what turns her on.
Yeah.
That's what triggers her feelings. Do I really care? I didn't know that. For a man to hear no, I've had to deal with that, because a man hears a no and feels like, you don't love me no more. And we've realized, no, it's not about love. She does love me. She's just not where I'm at. So how do I take her there? It's almost like she's a Ferrari that I don't understand. She's an amazing species, that's different. I've had to understand that, but she has to understand me.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I get help? And even we've seen doctors for help, just to help us in that aspect of keeping that fire alive, because sex is part of the fire, not everything, but it is.
And it is part of marriage.
It's part of marriage, and we both love it. We love it. We like it. It's just getting there, right? It's getting there. Kids.
We get there differently.
Life, we get there differently. So we've just had to learn how to get there differently.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Keeping sex alive, guarding that flame, means remembering that to love is to give to each other, at times to show restraint, at others making the effort to initiate or to be responsive, even if we don't feel like it.
Sexual desire won't stay at the same level. But as we increase the emotional intimacy between us, physical desire will usually return. We need to take a long view. This is a process of building or rebuilding our sexual relationship over the whole course of our marriage.
Sometimes we need to go back to basics and rediscover the enjoyment of touching and being touched without the expectation of making love.
And we want to encourage you that this vital ingredient of your relationship really is worth caring for and investing in.
Before we end this session, we suggest you spend a minute or two telling your partner what was important for you in this session, and if there's an area where you'd like your partner's support. And it may be something you've realized for the first time.
And if you need to say sorry to your partner for anything that you've done to spoil your sexual intimacy, or you want to express forgiveness to them, this would be a good moment.
Then, if you're comfortable praying, say a short prayer for each other, either aloud or silently. Otherwise, express your support for your partner in some other way. I'm going to say a short prayer as we end. Thank you, Lord, for the way you've made us, with all the complexity and subtlety of our sexual responses. Thank you that we're able to express love to each other through being joined together sexually. Help us as we learn to arouse each other and then to satisfy those desires. We ask that trust, openness, and understanding would grow between us as we give ourselves in love to each other throughout our marriage. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We look forward to you joining us next time for the final session.
Let's talk about sex.
So, the sex life.
Awkward.
I mean, I get giddy whenever we talk about sex.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Right.
Is that okay?
You were waiting for that. Yeah.
We're in trouble.
Such. What else is there?
I'm not saying anymore.
See, you laughed whenever it do. Sex is the last thing on my mind.
Headache.
And
Got a headache.
and my headaches are very real. Thank you very much.
What song's in your mind?
Oh, no.
Oh, come on, baby. What?